is cheesy. The plot is stupid. I'm sorry, the plot is bad.
That's a little opening. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Hello, everyone. We're back.
Man, it's good to be back.
Yeah, you got that right, brother. Welcome to another edition of ARG Presents. It's what the people crave, brother.
We are not Brondo.
I'm your good buddy, your good pal, Amigo Aaron, joined as always by the lesser half of this team. I give you the Brent.
It's me.
That's right. So it's an exciting week, and we are going to get into a little post Boatfest talk here near the end of the show. But I'm too excited to wait too long on this one, Brent, because a couple weeks ago we spun the wheel and we made the exciting deal.
We did. This wheel right here.
That's right. And this week, Brent, we're going to be examining the game career of Dean Bent. Dean Bent, the one, the only Dean Bent. Now,
Yes.
there are a few people out there, Brent, that may not know.
I don't believe that's possible.
Well, I mean, there's a few.
Well, I mean, we should round them up.
Maybe foreign countries or whatever that don't know who Dean Bent.
What?
They're not down with the Dean Bent experience.
You mean like some of those travel places?
That's right.
Okay.
And so,
I forgive that.
And so I'm going to elaborate on, first of all, how we met Dean, and then like why we're covering Dean. So, you know, a lot of people don't know this, Brent, but we've got an email address, you know. ARGpresents@mail.com.
That's one of many.
We've had it forever, you know. And we tell people, hey, send us your wheel ideas to the old email. Now, we get a lot of wheel ideas and suggestions in Discord, but we do occasionally get some on the old email. And probably like a year ago, a fellow sent in some wheel suggestions, and his name was Dean Bent. So I was like chatting with Dean on email, and he's like, "Oh yeah," he's like, I'm in the biz. I'm in the game biz.
We've got a few people like that.
And he goes, "You should do a wheel piece on me, Dean Bent." And I was like,
that was followed with ha ha ha.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I think he was sort of serious, and I was like, "Hey, I've never had anyone ask me to make them into a pie piece. We'll do it." I was like, "Well," and so he kind of listed off some of the stuff he'd done. You know, and so I thought to myself, this might be kind of fun. Yeah. And Dean's a real cool guy. I'm going to interview Dean somewhere in the near future, like a full-on interview, probably on one of my Friday Disaster streams. So I thought to myself, well, heck, this is a rare opportunity to take a look at someone like who has went through a lot of different game experiences and a lot of different roles in companies. So if you'll indulge me, I'm going to give you a little background on the Deanster.
Absolutely.
And now check it out. Now Dean did me a little write-up, the Brent, to kind of give me. I mean, this is a real sort of a real broken down into small little chunks of his career. So Dean started at U.S. Gold around '92. He got the job, even though he showed up for the job interview a week early. I don't know what. That's initiative. So he was on the customer support team. He eventually became the supervisor, then the manager of the customer support team. You see how this works?
Absolutely.
So he literally got in at the ground floor.
Climbing that corporate ladder.
U.S. Gold. He said it was a cool place to work because they were often handling really good titles all over Europe, like X-Wing and a lot of the LucasArts stuff, and the Lynx stuff, and some other stuff, Avalon Hill.
Well, nor all the non-good U.S. Gold titles.
Well, yeah. So he was in customer support, but eventually they said, hey, why don't you do a little QA testing, right? And this is where Dean sort of got his bread and butter. He was doing well. And then eventually Eidos came in, and they, just as U.S. Gold, or just as Tomb Raider was finished up, they bought U.S. Gold, and so he was at Eidos. So eventually he left, effectively he left Eidos, U.S. Gold, and moved over to Rage. Now, I'd heard of Rage through a couple of different games. This is where he really spent a lot of his time. So when he came in, he was their customer support manager, but then they heard he did some QA stuff. So they're like, hey, we're going to put you in our QA department. And he was like, okay. And so Rage was working at the time they were one of the first companies that were getting all in on 3D accelerated graphics cards.
Mm-hmm.
And so Dean was in. He said the first game he worked on was called Incoming, which I took a look at this game. And Rage ended up being a big studio. They eventually they covered 10 different studios at its peak, and worked on some games like a World of Worlds, a Hostile Waters, the Rocky game. And then eventually, unfortunately, Rage, and we'll get into this a little bit actually.
Yeah.
Rage shut its doors in 2003, and so it was time to move on to another place. He went to work at Babel Media in Brighton. This was a QA outsourcing company. It's funny to see how this stuff works. He's once again in quality assurance, and he worked on a bunch of projects there, test games. So after that, get this, he worked there for 6 months. It was time to move on. And so he found out Nokia was hiring a QA manager. Well, what were they looking for? They needed a QA guy for the new N-Gage. So guess what? Dean Bent went to work on the Nokia N-Gage. While he was there, the bulk of the games being developed, he had a hand in. He said when he first heard about the N-Gage, Nokia told them it was like a PlayStation, basically. And then he found out it wasn't like a PlayStation, it was like a phone. Unfortunately, a really bad phone. He worked on every European games, and he did QA for all of them too. And he produced the game Pathway to Glory. That was his first game he actually produced. N-Gage was a huge money loser for Nokia, and they were just sort of dipping their toe in the pool. And the pool, it turns out, was full of electric eels and sharks. So he was out, and then it was in the N-Gage. So eventually, the N-Gage side of Nokia was picked up by Microsoft, if you can believe that.
Yeah.
Then it was time to move on to Big Fun. He was at Big Fun for a while. He did work. He did QA processing, of course. He hired testers. He did work for big companies like Ubisoft, Housemarque, some others. Eventually, he wound up at Codemasters. He was a producer in the mobile game area. He produced F1 2016 there. He did not like Codemasters. He sort of buries Codemasters. I've heard some tales about the Codemasters at that point. Get this. He moved on to, because, you got to go where the work's at. Time to move to St. Petersburg, Russia.
Wow.
Dean Bent headed over to Spearsoft. He was the senior project manager and had a 30-month contract in Russia. He worked on maps for Rainbow Six Siege, and he worked on all the Mortal Kombat mobile games. Did you ever play those Mortal Kombat mobile games? I saw him. He worked on Halo Infinite, but he wasn't real keen on that, so it's time to head back out of there and head back to England to work at Housemarque. And they needed a senior producer to work on stuff on the PS5. So look how far we've gone. And so then that was a fun place to work, but then COVID hit. Then he headed back to Finland. He was there for a couple weeks, and finally, after being at Housemarque for a little while, it was time to head to the King Dong, and where he currently resides, NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Dean has
a good place to land.
Dean has had roles in Cyberpunk, for example, the new Alan Wake 2, I believe it was. So he's still working in the biz, and he's there with the big dog now. And so if you look at the games he's put out, and we've been involved in, he's went all the way from the low lows to the peak. I mean, Cyberpunk, of course, a massive game,
and it wasn't just a straight line either. It's up and down, up and down.
And I think Dean was actually one of the producers on that. So you're talking about a guy who worked in tech support and customer support that moved through the ranks all the way up. It's quite a tale. I'm looking forward to speaking with him about a lot of the stuff, especially the N-Gage stuff. But we thought, man, this is plenty of material here for us to get in on some games.
Yeah, so many games that he touched.
And so what we did was the BRENT, and of course we can't call this the games of Dean Bent because these games have like 1 million people working on them.
Of course,
Dean was just a small part of these various games, but this is the gaming life of Dean Bent. So we felt like we were justified to pick any of the games that he had a hand in.
Absolutely.
And he sort of sent over some suggestions, which I ignored, but you didn't ignore. And we're going to cover those today. Would you like to lead the dance? I think you've got a more interesting title if you want to lead the dance
but
on
before we jump right into the games, Aaron, do you think that you would have the will, the fortitude, if it were as you were, to change countries due to your job?
It's an interesting question, and it would depend on the country, I think. I've got a lot. It depends, and also the wad. You know, like what I want to leave, like in America, you can change states.
So that completely
that's
different.
Well, but
Yeah.
I'm saying that I'm trying to equivalize this, whatever. So you can leave. Let's say if I went to Kentucky to work, and I work
Yeah.
in Kentucky every day.
Yeah.
All right, but that's not like going to another country.
No, not
Okay.
even close.
Now, if they said, "Listen, Aaron, we need you to pack up and move to like Iowa or California or Washington State or Florida," that would be sort of like moving to another country, but you'd still be in the U.S., so you'd be comfortable here. If they said, "We need you to move to Canada," I mean, it'd be cold. I probably would not be happy. And but if it was one of the non-French speaking parts, I'd be okay.
Yeah.
If they told me to move to Mexico, it'd be a lot harder because I don't speak Spanish. You know, so that would be. The money would have to be real good. If they told me to move to St. Petersburg, that'd have to be a flipping great wad of cash.
No, it would
go there.
Never happen.
I mean, especially now, that'd be a rough assignment to our over there. But yeah, no, I mean, moving countries. I mean, I've worked in other countries. It's unusual, but I've never stayed there.
Yeah, you were there for a cup of tea.
A couple weeks. But I don't know if I would be. I mean, if the money's right, and they've got me like a sweetheart deal, and they'll take care of some of the low, like housing or helping me find cars or whatever stuff like that, I might consider.
So you would say move to the UK for like permanently. This isn't like you're going over there for a month.
Oh, to the UK, I'd be far more inclined to go there because I know people there. Hopefully my people would help me.
But
a lot. I would need a lot of help.
You get there, they're all just sitting there with crowbars.
If everyone there would be like, "First did you drink?" I'm like, "Oh man, I don't know what I'm doing."
No,
yeah.
But you would just pack up and leave and go to the UK. Just that you.
Well, I mean, the boy had to be out of the house too. That's one thing. I wouldn't leave until he graduated from high school.
See, I don't think there was any job that I would personally be like, yeah, I'm going overseas. I just can't. I like changing states. Yeah, I would be. Well, I mean, for what I do, I wouldn't do it either. But I would at least offer, like, if it was up in Maine or some of the northern states, I'd probably do it because I kind of want to move there anyway.
Too cold.
Yeah, I like cold. But if it was like another country, I mean, even like fun, good countries where I could walk right in and feel comfortable, I wouldn't do it. It's just that for a job. No,
fun, good countries, eh?
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't name any of those because the unfun, bad countries might get mad at you.
Hey, you know when to hold them. So I'm starting this shindig.
I think it's funny. I will say before you start, I looked over the Dean Bent catalog.
Yeah.
And there was one game that drew me, but you picked it. And there were multiple games that drew me, but there was one I was like, I got to see what this is. And so we both. It's funny how this does happen on occasion because we didn't talk.
No,
we had no clue what we were playing, and we both ended up picking games the same genre. But you picked the games that I would have picked. And so, and I'll tell you, go ahead with your game and I'll get into mine.
I chose Go Beckham, or if you want the entire title, Go Beckham, Adventure in Soccer Island.
Yeah.
On Soccer Island.
Yeah.
Not in it, because if you're in it, that's a bad time.
You do go in it. There are caves and stuff in there.
This is a game for the GBA released in 2002 by Rage. And this takes Beckham from soccer fame, and puts him
David Beckham.
Yes, Aaron. Thank you. I think the people know. And puts you in a unlikely role. I think if you're paying for a license on a guy that big, you almost have to put him in an actual soccer game, but they didn't, because Go Beckham is a platformer, a exploratory platform game, only released in the EU, and only on a PAL cartridge. This is
really,
an interesting take on Beckham. You play as a kidified. Would you say that's what it is?
It's like a baby Beckham, like a maybe 8-year-old Beckham.
Yes. Yeah, a kidified Beckham.
Like if you looked at this guy, would you think to yourself, "Hey, look, it's a young Beckham," or would you think that's some kid?
I would think it's some kid.
Right.
But I'm told it's Beckham, so I can only assume that's who it is.
Although I don't think they ever call him that in the game. I don't remember them ever calling him Beckham. Do you remember that?
I don't think that they do. I bet that is part of because if you paid for the full licensing for his name and his likeness and whatnot, just him, it would cost a fortune, especially in 2002. So I bet they paid for his name.
Well,
and
I don't know about that.
And a small. Well, you don't think it would cost?
Well, no, but it's a Dean fact. I'm going to tell you later that may shed some light on this.
So, in this game, you start out and your coach comes on the screen as a little circle in the corner. He's like, "Hey," it's like, "Welcome to the island. Like, we can't just let you in. You need to go through our training to earn your place on the club."
Yeah, you got to join the club.
So you have 3 trial stages, and basically these are tutorials. They teach you how to move, how to jump, kick your soccer ball around, and just go over the basics. One thing I love that this game did is the first opportunity you had to fall, the game actually said, "Don't worry, you don't take fall damage."
Yeah.
Right? It did it in a gamified way, but I actually really appreciated that.
Yeah, the tutorial was actually, this was a few times. I mean, you have to play it, but it actually taught you all the crap you need to know.
For the most part, yes. I will have to say that the tutorial, even though it's only 3 stages, there's a lot of reading. This is not
the whole game.
This is not a show don't tell scenario. This is tell and then watch you do it.
Yeah.
So the goal of the game, the overall arc of the game is you're trying to free Soccer Island from the monsters. You have to conquer Mr. Woe.
Yeah.
Is your ultimate bad guy's name because he's bringing down the island.
Yeah.
And you do this by kicking your little soccer ball around, unlocking different portal checkpoints that are goals that look like hula hoops, and then you kick your soccer ball into the hoop, and that takes you to the next level. The level select in this is a big map screen, very much like Super Mario Brothers 3. And you don't kill the monsters, you defeat them, and they go into their egg form, and at the end of the stage, you release all the eggs, a la almost like a Sonic, where they're trapped in the robots, and then you free them, and they hop out. They're all little forest animals too. You can tell they pulled a lot of ideas from other games to incorporate into their game. Your objective on each level is to unlock X amount of locks, and you do this by just kicking your soccer ball into the lock symbol.
Yeah, just hanging up with space. Yeah,
and that's what gets you to farther into the game. I think the most I ever saw that I had to unlock was 6, although I did not go through the entire game. And the stages are fairly linear. There are ways you can go up and down that you don't necessarily have to do, and there's times that you can go past the goal to find secrets, or go to the left at the beginning of a stage to find secrets. And that's really what this game is. Going through the stages, there's really very little conflict, because even if you die, it says that you foul, and
yeah, that's cute.
It just puts you back at the beginning of the stage. So there's no way to game over through deaths that I saw.
Yeah, and you've got a couple hit points, and you can get more. They're like little hearts at the top. Yeah.
So the game lives and dies by its controls, its enemy variety, and level design. So I'm going to go through those real quick.
Okay.
Controls. This does really well at having you control the soccer ball.
Yep.
It lets you kick it diagonally up in the air, straight up in the air. It lets you kick it flat on the ground. in a little arc, and it all feels very intuitive.
And you can head it. You can do the header.
Yes, when the ball is falling from the top, from anywhere on the upper part of the screen, you can hit it with your head, and you can actually juggle it with your head if you're good. When you kick the ball, it glows until its first bounce, which means that the ball is active and can actually do things. Because you don't just use the ball to defeat enemies, you use the ball for everything. All your unlocking, all your collecting, anytime you need to manipulate scenery in the game, will destroy a block or whatever.
Yeah.
All that is done with the soccer ball. It is as much as the character as Beckham is. And that in and of itself sounds daunting, and it is. There are definitely times that it's daunting, but they kind of counteract this by having a mode where if you collect 100 coins, you become, I can't remember what it's called. Golden shoes. And at that point, just running past the items allows you to pick
them. Just touch them. Yeah.
And when you lose that status, you have that status until you die.
Yeah.
That's really the penalty of death is losing that status.
The golden shoes make things a lot. I mean, they just walk up to them and it's easier. It's easy. It's not like kicking the ball's not that tough. It's just sometimes you'll kick the ball off a ledge or something. Yeah.
Right. The way they keep this game fresh is by having multiple collectibles, because it is a European game.
Yeah.
In the form of gems and food and health pickups and spells.
And coins.
And coins, of course. As you go, if you collect different spells, some are that used right then to freeze your enemies, kill your enemies, or do different types of manipulation. But also, some are permanent. For example, you can run faster, jump higher while dribbling the ball. You can even gain superpowers, which allows you to pull the ball back to you.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. That's how they keep the game fresh, and that's how they evolve the levels as it goes on.
Yeah.
Next, the enemies. The enemies in this are actually interesting because they make them interesting. They're blobbish in appearance, and that's fine. They're not going to win any style awards.
It's just like for kids, so they're not scary.
But it has them as the small ones don't even hurt you. They just kind of tag along like groupies.
They try to screw with the ball. They like the ball.
And then the bigger enemies, you can ride them. You can just jump on their back and stand on them, and most of them don't care. But then some enemies start wanting to actually cause you harm, and they'll knock you down or try to hit the ball away.
I like the one that comes up and just kicks the ball, and then they celebrate.
Yes.
They're like, yeah.
Yeah. So the enemy evolution in this is really good. And it gives you enough new stuff, at least through the levels I played through. I'll play through all the way through the first world and the tutorial.
We played a little bit into the second world.
I did as well. Which I played about 15 levels. I think
so
every level has 9 worlds.
Did you start at the forest or the swamp?
Forest.
Okay, that's what we played.
Every world has 9 lands. And in each land, you can also collect a bonus ball. And the bonus ball is just a letter in the name of Beckham. And you have to take that bonus ball and shoot it in the goal like your normal ball, except you can't use the bonus ball to attack. It's simply there as a collectible, as a bonus.
That's clever. I thought that was clever.
This is a game that you can play through and then go back and pick up the things you didn't complete all the way. Because it tracks everything.
Yeah.
It tracks how many times you died. It tracks how many enemies you defeated, turned into eggs, and eventually saved. It tracks all the letters, all the coins, everything.
The time, everything.
There's a score. Something I very much appreciate about this game is there is no time limit in the stage. It tells you how long you spent on a stage, but it doesn't say you need to get to from point A to point B in 10 seconds. It allows you to go your own pace and explore the world. And lastly, we've got level design. This is where I think the game falls the most flat, but it's not horrible. Again, as you go through the worlds, they introduce new mechanics, like the ability to drop things on enemies. That's the in the caves you can do that.
Oh yeah, the stalactites. Yeah.
And there's ways to free platforms, and once a platform's free, you can ride it to get to new locations. So there's enough there to keep it interesting. Excuse me. I just don't think that uh, a lot of love and care went into crafting the level deep into the levels. Really giving that extra little oomph. But they're all good. They're just not great. The controls, I think, are great. The enemies, I think, are great because they have attitude, they have personality. Some you don't care if they show up on your screen. Some you try to kill them as quickly as possible. And I think the level design on this is good. There are 5 bosses in the game, and they all have their own gimmick. Some, like, you're just trying to destroy the ledge that they're on.
Like the first boss we fought was the bird,
the penguin,
and he's on like a perch.
Yes,
and you have to pick a side of that perch and keep nailing it with the ball, and it'll keep leaning him further and further until he finally tumbles off.
Until he tips.
I thought that was cute. I thought that was clever. I like that.
Yeah, I did too. And then some of the bosses are hung by balloons. You've got to pop the balloons. There's a Leviathan boss that you have to shoot the ball in his mouth, and eventually he spits it back at you. Eventually he'll choke on it, and he'll go down that way. And you never kill in this game. You defeat the enemies, but then they give that whole like, oh, I was bad, now I'm good type of thing. It's a very feel good game. I would say it's a GBA game, and it's probably targeting what do you say, 8 to 12-year-olds, 8 to 15-year-olds.
I'd say somewhere in that ballpark. Probably 8 might be a little young, but I'd say like early teens in that area. Yeah,
but as
little kids could absolutely play. I mean, they would play. Yeah,
yeah, and as an adult, I played this and I enjoyed it. I like these type of you have an object that you have to keep with you. I like that type of game. Soccer Kid, I believe, is the same.
I was going to mention
concept.
that. Yeah.
And all the collectibles, since it doesn't force you to get them, because at the very beginning I was collecting everything.
Yeah.
Every single thing, every gem, every coin, everything there was to collect. And then I had one level where I had to do it 2 or 3 times. I was like, you know what? Screw that. I just want to get to the end.
Yeah, you can do it.
And you can do it.
Yeah.
And that's fun. I enjoyed this game. The graphics on it are pleasant.
Yeah.
They're very bright. They're very vibrant. Their scary elements are kid-friendly scary. I mean, it's nothing that's there's no jump scares or anything like that. The sound on it is basic but passable, I would say. Especially for a GBA game.
Yeah.
They weren't trying to burn down the house with the music, but it was never offensive.
It was pleasant, I thought.
This game, I enjoyed all my time with it. What did you think, Aaron?
It's funny, because when I was getting ready for this episode, I was looking at Dean's games. And this game is one of the ones that has the lowest score. Like everyone killed this game. And I thought, man, this game must really stink. This must be a real dog of a game, And so I fired it up, and I did the opening tutorial. I was like, oh, it's a little Soccer Kid action. And I got to tell you, I don't know what the reviewers are mad about. I mean, maybe it gets worse further in, but I felt like I played a whole world plus part of the next world, and I was really enjoying the game. I think it's a pleasant game. I mean, you nailed a lot of it. It's presented in a fun way. There's too much dialogue with the coach at first.
There is.
But I mean, it's tutorial, and there are little Mario, question mark boxes where you can get the guy to tell you what, little hints. You don't have to hit them if you don't want. When you die, you just start back on the same level and you start over. So it's not really when you get fouled. Beckham is a cute little character. I mean, this is okay, I played Soccer Kid on the Amiga. It's a pretty popular game. This crushes.
It does.
This crushes Soccer Kid.
It does.
And what this is to me,
it's a lot more playable.
I've played many European platformers, okay? This is the Euro platformer evolved.
Yeah.
And here's what I mean by that. Can you go to the end of this level without unlocking the end goal? Yes. But you won't.
Yeah.
Because the blocks are there. They're not, sometimes you have to look around a little bit, but they're there. It's got exploration, which the Euro platformers have. It's got a collection of stuff which Euro platformers have. But what they've done is they've taken the concepts of most European platformers and they've condensed them and they've tweaked them, and the levels are done in a way where you're going to come across the things you need to unlock the ending. And like you said, you don't have to go and get every gem or every coin, but you're going to want to get the coins for the golden boots, and you're going to want to get the gems because at the end you get a bonus if you're playing for score, and it looks nice on the screen.
Mhm.
There's a big summarization screen where Beckham jumps up and down, which is cool. The enemies are amusing, like you said. When they get the enemies will get you when they start coming in mass. That's when they
Yes.
get a lot tougher, and they'll corner you in areas that make you have trouble. But I mean, the game really eases you into the more difficult levels, and it turns out, guess what? The last level before the boss, hardest level.
Yeah.
And then the boss, and the boss is like it's beatable.
Yeah.
I mean, I like a game where I'm not instantly frustrated. Eventually, you get the power to instantly have your ball come back to you, which is like something like Soccer Kid had. Great, but it's not. You don't have to have it. You can and it wasn't super frustrating. You can take crazy shots with the ball, and you may end up doing something good. Off screen, which is cool. The bonus ball is cool. We like that where it spells out Beckham. I don't. The graphics on this I thought looked great.
Yeah.
I mean, the GBA is what a wonderful machine that was.
Absolutely.
And playing this on the monitor was a joy. I love the way the forest looked. The game is beautiful and cheery. Even the cave level, it's purples and blues. It's nice. It's pleasant. There are a variety of different enemies. You've got flying enemies. You've got crawling enemies. Some enemies are so smart. They'll chase you. And I don't mean just like until they run into a rock. They can jump up the ledges just like Beckham can. So they come after you, which is interesting. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed this. And then, so Luke was going to bed last night. I was playing this late last night. And Luke, like, what are you playing there? I'm like, I'm playing this Beckham game. He's like, who's Beckham? I'm like, ah. So Luke's like, you want to give it a shot? And so Luke played like 4 or 5 levels of this. And he loved it too. He's like, this is great. When I put him to bed, he was sad. He wanted to play more Beckham. Like, it's 1 a.m. You can play Go Beckham later. So I told myself, I'm going to say this now. I said, and I'm sure everyone will be down with this. I said, listen, I'm going to play these games that Dean Bent worked on, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Just because Dean Bent, the legendary Dean Bent, worked on them, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If I don't think the game's any good, I'm going. And I thought,
absolutely.
And I was sure. I was 100% sure that this was going to be a dud. I mean, everyone killed this game. I mean, it's got all the hallmarks of a dud. Kind of like weird license that didn't use right. It's a European only release. It's a handheld. I thought, man, this one must be garbage. This was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it. Would you like to hear some Dean game facts about this game?
Hit me with the Dean knowledge.
So, Dean, I talked to Dean about this game. He said, Go Beckham was developed by Dinky and Dundee. They were wonderful to work with, pure professionals with a very distinct and fun graphic style. They're still going today. They were formed by ex-DMA design people. Some of them worked on Lemmings. My main counterpart back then was Gary Penn, a former Amiga journalist turned developer. We got on really well, and we're still occasionally in touch today. So get this. This is the pivotal part of this. When Rage acquired the license to create David Beckham games, we knew a football simulation would be assured, especially with Rage's past history of creating football sims.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone expected the license would be used to create a side-scrolling platform game that was aimed at younger gamers. I guess it can be compared to Soccer Kid on the Amiga and the 16-bit consoles. I like both games, but I think Soccer Kid is frustrating to play. I agree. While the Beckham games did quite well, this was the license that killed Raid Software. I don't know the numbers involved, but the license wasn't cheap, and the marketing budget really pushed the company over the edge. The Birmingham studio where I was based changed hands several times over the years, but they are currently making the F1 games for EA. I think there are still 50 or 20 people that were around during the Raid Software days. They were a superb team. But I did, in fact, look this up. There were 2 licenses that pretty much stuck Rage deep beneath the Earth's crust. And they were the Beckham license and the Rocky license. And they both killed the company dead. They paid so much money for them Now, I will say this. You know who David Beckham is.
Yeah.
Okay, now, why do you know?
He's a great soccer player.
Right, but is that why you know him?
Yes.
Here's how I knew Beckham. Okay, I knew there's two reasons. There was a movie out 20 years ago, something like that, called Bend It Like Beckham.
Yes.
This is a great movie. I loved it. I'd never heard of Beckham before this movie. And I
Okay.
guess by then he was a big star. Because we don't watch soccer.
Sure.
Secondly, Hot Wife. One of the Spice Girls is his wife. I'm just saying, those are the reasons I know who Beckham is. So is the license, you can see why that's another reason they don't release it in Europe. If you're going to pay big money for a license, I would want to get one that would be well known all over the world. And I don't know if this one would have been at that time. And since they only released this in Europe, that makes me think that I'm right. There you go.
This is a tough. Here's my problem with marketing on this game. You could have taken the Beckham license off this and just called it Soccer Lad.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have,
Wow. That would have been.
Shut up, Soccer Lad. It wouldn't have changed the game one iota.
Football Freddy.
All
Something
right?
like that, yeah.
The Soccer Lad.
Soccer Lad's much. It's because the soccer kid people want to have a word with you.
Listen, Soccer Lad. It wouldn't have changed the game at all.
Yeah.
0%. Change the title screen. That's literally all you'd have to do. Because I think you could probably even get away with the sprite as it is. Maybe give him some glasses.
Yeah.
Okay? But no one is going to pick up Soccer Lad. All right?
Yeah.
They're going to pick up Go Beckham. All right? So this was used solely to market the game.
Yeah.
Okay? And I get that. And it is the most unfortunate thing to ever happen to gaming, not this game in particular, but throughout the Idols of Time, because most of your licensed games are crapped out as quick as possible to get the buck.
Yeah.
And when you have people that actually care and put in the effort on a licensed game and make it a good game just because it's a good game, somehow the license is always too expensive and the company falters for it.
Yeah.
It's you could re-release this game right now, strip the title off of it, put it on Switch, and sell 100,000 copies.
It's a great game. I don't think that many people played it.
No.
And I think this is a real. I'm not gonna call it a hit. I'm gonna call it a hidden gem. I would have never played it if it wasn't for Dean Bent. There's no way.
That's true.
Dean Bent pulled it off. So we're gonna give it's 1 point for Dean Bent. Do these GBA games? I mean, the market to buy these is not that. They're pretty cheap, aren't they?
This game goes for about $30 American.
No, that's not too bad. And of course, you could. I played this on the old Mister, and it'll play on pretty much anything at this point.
If you want this new in box, you can still find it for about 120.
Holy smokes!
So there is some appeal, and I guarantee that appeal is going off the name. And Aaron said the reviews killed this. They weren't great, but the reviews were in the low. The low 70s, high 60s.
Yeah, they
were middling.
I'm not gonna say this is Ultra Mario 89, but I will say this is a solid B plus title.
Yeah,
I think this is quite a good title.
So if I brought gold to the party, Aaron, what did you bring?
You know, I'm gonna tell you the story of the game I picked. I really had my heart set on playing a Beckham game. You know, I'm legendary in my hatred of soccer. However, even my cold, frozen heart was slightly melted a bit at Boat Fest when me and a fellow child sat down and played some Subbuteo at the show on our heavily creased play field. But we still had fun. I was like, I'm in the mood for some soccer. And since you took the Beckham game, I'm going to go down the road and try another more serious soccer game. So I looked into the Dean Bent catalog to see what he had. And way back, I found a game that he worked on. It was on the PlayStation and the Dreamcast.
Yep.
I played the PlayStation version, by the way. It was called Striker Pro 2000 in America. In Europe, it was called UEFA Striker. Now, I don't know what that is.
That's a league.
I looked it up. So get this. So you got FIFA and you got the UEFA. They're the two major governing bodies in the world. And so I looked up like, okay, what's the difference? FIFA, right, is the top governing organization of football with 211 member organizations. The UEFA is the Union of Football Associations. It's one of 6 continental groups that oversee football. And it's got 55 nations under it, or under national football associations. And the main difference is that FIFA oversees football and soccer on a global scale, and the other one basically looks over soccer in Europe.
Yeah.
And FIFA organizes the World Cup. UEFA is in charge of the Champions League, the Europa League, and the Nations League. Okay, so these are just big tournaments, and so which I'll get to in a moment. But that's part of what's in the game. So the game itself, again, released on the PlayStation in Europe. It was released in October of '99. Same with the Dreamcast, and in America, it was released April 2000. This was put out in the Europe by Infogrames. It also was put out by them over here, and it was developed by Rage. We mentioned Rage in the previous game. Just a few things Rage did that you may have heard of. They did the Striker series, which was a bunch of soccer games in. They did Revolution X, like did a port of that. They did the Power Drive series. They also developed Doom for the Saturn and the PlayStation, and FIFA 97. They worked on that. They worked, as Dean mentioned, they worked on Incoming Forces, Rocky. We talked about, of course, Go Beckham, Gunmetal, a game I'd love to try called Off Road Redneck Racing. There were 2 games that I really looked at to try. One was called Eurofighter Typhoon, which looked really interesting. And there was a war game called Incoming Forces, but both of which I couldn't run easily and quickly. So I didn't want to put you in a spot. But Eurofighter Typhoon looks pretty interesting. Again, this is a football game and was a game that tried to take the league concept of the tournament concept of the UFA and turn it into a game. So this is not a cutesy game. This is a straight up soccer game.
Yes.
And it's of that era where the PlayStation was getting into the 3D world. You know, when the PlayStation came out, the Brent, really 3D became more necessary. It wasn't like,
absolutely.
I mean, that's what they wanted. That's what they were like, okay, we've got the PlayStation, that's what we're gonna do. So you look at the first forays into that 3D realm, and sometimes they're okay, like your N64, sometimes they're a little iffy, but it's a PlayStation era moved in. They got pretty decent at it, and I would call this game. I wouldn't call this the early 3D. I'd call it sort of like mid-early. Like they were going, they'd got it down by then.
This isn't Lara Croft level. Right. This is the step above.
Right. Exactly. The Brent.
First Tomb Raider.
So again, I mentioned that this was UEFA in Europe and Striker Pro 2000 in America. This was the final Striker game. There was another one planned, but it got canceled. It was going to be in the Dreamcast, but the Dreamcast tipped over, as you may have heard. And so what do you got here? Well, when you start this game out, there's an interesting full motion video of this soccer ball just sitting in this empty stadium, and then magic shoots out of the soccer ball, and it slowly starts filling the stadium with cheering fans. It's pretty neat.
It's awesome.
You like? Oh, you
awesome.
I was surprised. Vote never watches them. You like that?
Oh yeah, because it doesn't just fill the stadium. What it does is the stadium is like worn down.
Yeah,
like all the grass is brown.
Yeah,
none of the lines are on the field. And this glowing electrical orb in the middle starts charging up, and it just spits out in a straight line at like 12 o'clock. And then it just starts weaving out both clockwise and counterclockwise and filling the stands, fixing the field, putting all the lines on and everything.
Yeah.
I thought it was awesome. It got me pumped.
It was a good open. There's no doubt about it. So the game lets you choose from 51 European national teams, 44 domestic clubs, and 20 bonus teams that you can earn. All right, this is one of those games where you can earn different aspects of the game by doing well in certain areas. So when you start the game up, you can just have a friendly game. You can start. You can participate in a tournament of your choice, or you can do the training, which is where I went first. And the training consists of, well, I mean, there's a reason for that. The training consists of, I believe it's like you get 10 chances at different training. And if you get enough, if you do well enough, you can unlock stuff with the training. And so there's training on just like kicking the ball, passing the ball, situational things, like corner throws and stuff like that. Corner kicks. So there's throws too.
Not in the corner.
But it goes through all the different elements of soccer that a young fledgling soccer enthusiast would need to know, like myself. The game, I mean, I actually enjoyed the training. It's very cool. It's quite clever. Like, for example, when you're kicking the ball at first, the first level of just kicking the ball, kick the ball into the net, empty net. Then they say, okay, kick it into the one side, then kick it to the other side. Now make it go in the air, kick the top portions of the net. Okay, now we're going to put a goalie in front of the net. Now we're going to put a defender and a goalie. And you work your way up, and it actually works well. And then there's one on passing that's very similar. And then there's, so it goes, and as you do go through these, you can earn bonuses and whatnot. I went to the options menu there. The options menu will let you turn up and down the aggression of the computer, how hard they're going to go at it. I turned it down to nothing, and they still seem pretty aggressive to me on there. And you can also fiddle with the audio, and you could line up the screen. The stuff you could normally do on a PlayStation. And then, of course, you've got your friendly game, and you can just pick a couple teams to go at it. This does support the multi-tap, so you can have up to 4 people playing at once.
Yes.
And you can have up to 8 people playing in the tournament who just pick teams of their choice and go at it, which is nice. The game comes on with a TV-style presentation, which is nice. I thought it looked good. The commentary, I don't know who these guys are. I'm sure this is sacrilege in the soccer world, but your commentators are Ron Atkinson, Jonathan Pierce, and Rude Gillette, I believe is his name. They come on to tell you what's going on. The opening's nice. You can set how long you want to play. Set the quarter or the half. You can set that stuff up. When the game comes up, after you've picked your side with the joystick, then you can set how you want your guys lined up. And you can even determine, okay, do I want to play super aggressive? Do I want to be super defensive? Middle of the road, right? It gives you a lot of they made options for dummy. Okay, I know what this stuff means. So in the second game, which I'll get to in a minute, and second tournament game I played, I changed my line a little bit. You can rearrange your line in here. Again, I don't know what I'm doing, but I could see the guys on the screen. I understand the lineup. Your guys come out on the field, they shake hands. The crowd looks pretty good. They've got flags waving. They've got cool sound. I mean, this is not a modern FIFA game level graphics, but I thought they pulled it off pretty nicely. They look nice.
Yeah, I thought the graphics were
I like the flags. The crowd would also react to what was going on in the field, and often they would react in a way that made me angry because they would not necessarily like what I do. There are multiple stadiums in the game. I just left it on random because I thought that was cool, but there were a ton of stadiums in the game. You can also, here's something that's important, Brent. So let's say you love the FIFA stuff, but you're not the biggest fan of the UEFA. You could go in and literally change the names of every team and every player. That's also, I'm just saying, it's in there.
No, I know.
We
don't know why they do that.
Yeah, which is real nice. I mean, that's a good thing to do. So you can go in there and change every player, and it's like wrestling does that too. It's the same thing. Sometimes, hey, if they don't include your favorite team or whatever, you want your team in there. So in my first friendly match, you've got your choice of camera angles. Okay, let's get into this. I don't know if did you try all the camera angles?
Yes.
So you've got the traditional, what I would call the sideline camera. Yeah. Okay. The sideline camera follows the action on the field from the sideline. Okay. And it hovers, it'll zoom in, it'll zoom out, depending on what's going on. Then you've got the overhead view, which it's exactly what it sounds like. It's an overhead view. You've also got like the basically like goal line view. Basically, you get a view instead of being from the side, it's from sort of like the back.
Yeah,
which I tried all 3 of them to see which one I could tolerate the most, and I ended up leaving it on the sideline one. But it, much like a lot of games of this type in this era, Well, I mean, let me guess. You went for the overhead.
The overhead is the most playable.
It's the most playable, but it's the least interesting looking.
Yes.
You also you can turn on and off like a radar of the pitch that shows you where guys are. The radar of the pitch, I guess if you knew a lot about soccer, it would make more sense to me, it was kind of hard to read the radar. It didn't help, let's just put it that way. When you start the match, you basically will go to whatever player is closest to the action, to the ball. You have a little circle around your guy. That means he's active. And then they'll have little like arrows or X's that come up to tell you where it's okay to pass. And so you can do that. And you've got different types of passes. You've got just a normal pass. Then you've got like a super kick pass. And then you've also can jump up in the air and headbutt the ball. You can also jump up in the air and kick the ball. So you've got a goodly amount of stuff. There's no like turbo or anything that I could find.
It's realistic soccer, not
it's the
NBA Jam.
If the ball goes out on the sidelines, okay, then you can do your throw in, and you've got a little arc. It sets up it shows the controls on the screen. Okay, you want to throw you can line it up. How high or low do I want to throw? It's almost like a golf game. Where do I want to put it? Hit the button, you throw the thing in. Same thing with kicking from the corner kick. It's the same kind of deal. Eventually, if the enemy team gets too close to to your goal, you'll switch over to the goalie sometimes, but not often. Usually, I'll tell you one thing:
you don't want it to switch.
No, I had the hardest working goalie in all of the UEFA, which I'll get to. So the first game I went out there, and like literally about 5 seconds into the game, the computer had kicked the ball down the pitch and had scored, and they were all dancing and laughing, having a good time. It's pretty exciting when they score. It's fun. The announcers go bananas. It's not like the Brazilians or anything or the Mexicans, but they still go bananas. The commentary is pretty good, but it does get repetitive after a while. This is the tradition of the day. You'll hear the same phrases over and over. It's funny. At the beginning of every match, the one guy asks the other guy, it's like, "What do you think of the weather? What do you think of the? What do you think of the pitch today? What do you think of the teams?" He almost always says the same stuff. It's like, "Well, they look pretty evenly matched." You can set the weather. You can pick the stadium. There's a lot of options as to in terms of what you want the game to be like. So that's a friendly game. So then I was like, well, I'm going to feel the tournament experience. And so you can enter these tournaments. You've got national team qualifiers and the super trophy, which is I went after the super trophy. There's a territorial cup. There's all kinds of different little tournaments, which I guess that's what the UEFA does.
Right.
So I entered a tournament to see how well I could do, and I didn't get to play the full tournament. I ended up playing the team from Kiev. I don't know why Kiev.
Yeah.
And so I picked it. Here's how I pick teams. Which uniform can I see the easiest? And Kiev won. I could see their uniform stood out to me. So in the first game, I believe I lost 1-0, and they had 18 shots on goal. I had none. I just got murdered. I was like, okay, we've got to change this up. So the next game, believe it or not, I fiddled with the lineup. I made my guys defensive. And I was like, okay, I was slowly figuring out the controls. In the second game, I had to play Paris, so we went to Paris, and they had at the first half of the game, they had like 9 shots to go. I had none. But the second half, I slowly started figuring out what was happening. And God bless that goalie from Kiev. This guy's all man. He blocked every shot from the Parisians. And I ended up eking out a draw in the second game, 0-0 tie. I was so happy. I can see how people are excited about these draws now because I was under the gun 24/7, but I actually got like 8 shots on goal, a couple good ones. I was learning to pass better. I was learning to, the flaw in this game for me, and it's the flaw in a lot of soccer games, is the long pass and the off-screen passing, I guess is basically the way I'd put it.
Well, you're not supposed to do that.
Well, no. But often you're passing and you're hoping. There's a lot of they'll pass and hope. The computer's shooting the ball out like the Harlem Globetrotters. They're out there. It's like, snap. It's beautiful to watch, actually, as they humiliate you and run down the field. my guys lumber. I do a lot of those deep kicks to get out of my territory. At the end of the game, it tells you how long you spent in your territory. And mine's always like, I spent like 90% of the time in my territory, 10% his, but I was getting better. And by the time I actually scored a goal in my third game, I still got crushed, but I scored a goal.
Yeah.
And the tournament keeps track of everything and stuff. I would call this a pretty, I enjoy, believe it or not, I actually enjoyed the game. I wish the camera, I could have found a better angle than I did for the camera. I just couldn't quite be happy with it. It's not bad. And the game looks good. It moves good. I felt like I had pretty good control of the characters. When you've got the ball sticks with you, pretty well. So I like that element of it. I like the idea of playing 4 people. This might be kind of fun, where you can pass around with your buddy. So that might be kind of cool. It had all the penalties you would expect. You could crush the other. I was the king of cheap shots.
Slide tackle.
You got that right. I was getting yellow cards to beat the band. And then afterwards, it sums up the game quite nicely. The presentation's nice. The music's good. I thought it was a better than average soccer game of the era. And I enjoyed it, the Brent. Before I get to the Dean facts on this, what did you think about this bad boy?
It is a soccer game. I mean, it's for me. I lost all appeal for soccer games when it went 3D, and it's because of that field vision, and the game became a lot more simulation. That's good for soccer fans. It just wasn't my taste in the game. Yeah. I would rather it be 2D with a top-down view, because you can play this at a top-down view, and actually, I did okay. I never won, but I did okay.
It sounds like you did bad if you never won.
Well, tell me, did you win?
Yeah, but I didn't say I did okay.
Oh, no, I did okay. I felt like I was competitive. Maybe I should say that. The options are good. The camera angle options are good, because they could have fancied this game up, and a lot of soccer games went this way. They just make it look as pretty as possible. And when you do that, you can take the playability down to 0. This, I felt like there was enough camera options that I could at least do something that I enjoyed and I could stick with.
And they do give the camera is wide enough to where you've got options to kick the ball to. Some of these games, I thought the camera played it a little bit too close, so I will give the game credit. They kept the game, the camera far enough back to where you could sort of see some guys.
Yeah.
But it was still, passing to me was the hardest part of the game.
I can't really comment on if the players look like the players. I don't know.
I don't think the players are based on anyone. I don't think.
I think they are.
Oh, okay.
Because they have name call outs from the commentators and whatnot. This is the type of game that if you're a soccer fan and you actually want a playable soccer game, this is right up your alley. For me, I don't want simulation. I want goofiness or 2D top-down, so it's basically foosball type of graphics. But that doesn't mean that this was a bad game. This was a very serviceable and passable game. The absolute thing that drove me nuts was the commentary. It was so repetitive. You were repeating lines in the same game. Like, not like, oh, the next game, I heard that in the previous game. No, this was like the next game, or the same game. You were hearing the same lines 2 or 3 or 4 times.
Can I tell you something real quick in line with what you're saying? So I wanted to see what Dean did on this game, all right? Dean did the following on this game, all right? This is more Dean stuff. Dean Bent. Data research. He was QA, Rage QA, and Dean will be happy to hear you say this, he was the commentary scriptwriter. Well, you buried him. No, you buried Dean Bent right there.
The lines were fine. There just weren't enough of them. There needed to be, and I'm sure this was a limitation of the disc.
CDs can only hold so much audio.
But there needed to be probably 10 times as many lines as there were.
It's funny, when they were in the heat of the game, it was fine. But when there was a pause, they were just like chatting. You would hear the same. Because when you're in the heat of the game, it's like, they just are oh, that's a good pass.
Yeah.
They're going up the pitch. that stuff's okay. It's just like, we're like, well, what do you think of today's weather? Like, Fred's like, well, I'll tell you, it looks dry.
So I mean, it is what it is. That it got very repetitive, and that's very much a sign of the time, and I understand that. But it was repetitive to an annoyance. The goal score stuff or goalie saves, that was probably the worst because
This guy saw the best save he'd ever seen 100 times.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. It was like, please.
I will say, in that guy's defense, my goalie was superhuman. He was like the goalie from Shaolin Soccer back there. So, I mean, they were incredible saves. But yes, I understand what you mean.
But everything else, if you're wanting a soccer simulation, and Striker Pro has a long history.
Yeah, I didn't realize how far back it went. Yeah,
it was the alternative to FIFA for many, many, many years. This is it does fine. It does fine if you want a soccer simulation game, especially based around this league.
I took a look to see how this scored with the critics, and it's funny, the PlayStation version did better than the Dreamcast version. By the way, I didn't want to say this before I forget. I found the box for UEFA Soccer, and it's got a couple reviews written on it, and so some of these are funny to me. So here's one. This is from PlayStation Pro magazine. They gave this a 94%. I'm going to quote PlayStation Pro. Console football just found a new god. FIFA, bend over and take it like a man.
All righty.
That's how you do it right there. I love that. Why would you write that? And that's on the ad for this game. Bend over, take it like a man. Anyway, getting back to the reviews. The PlayStation version in computer and video games, 4 out of 5 stars. GameSpot gave it 6.6 out of 10. IGN 7.2 out of 10. And PlayStation Magazine 8 out of 10. That's the UK version. And the US one gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It got over big time. And I said it did better than the Dreamcast version did. Let's talk about what Dean had to say about this.
Real quick,
go ahead.
I want to throw in one more thing. The crowd effects in this game are actually really, really good.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
They have a set down state and a stand up state when things get exciting, and I thought that was really clever. All right, go ahead.
I agree with you on that. So Dean said this was a pretty cutting edge at the time, which I can imagine. They didn't have the resources to compete with FIFA. Actually, they only had about 50 people in the studio, but everyone there loved football. They had a small team, a test team, 4 or 5 people, and he also had to do things like research the player database and test the game. He said game testing is black box, which means we basically play the game as an end user would without knowing what's under the hood. We all got real good at the game, he says, all the play testers. And then he also said he discovered a trick that you could hammer the pause button just before you kick the ball, and you could see the frame of the goalkeeper moving, which allowed you enough time to direct the ball to the right place and score every time. So that's what a QA does. So there you go. Dean was in there breaking the game. I assume they left that in there, by the way. And so anyway, again, the game did pretty well. Unfortunately, the last one of the series for that, which is kind of surprising because for everything I read, it seemed like it did pretty well also.
The stadium folded because of all the licensing crap.
Maybe. Anyway, you could pick this up on eBay for about $13 bill. PlayStation game's still pretty cheap if you're interested in getting this. But like you said, is this like, I don't know if I can sit here and tell you the best soccer game I've ever played. I don't know what it is. But I can tell you, in terms of the 3D ones, I had a good time with it. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I like the training. Actually, something else I like about the training. You could quit anytime you want, right? If you screwed up so bad and just start right back over, which I love games that let you do that. Yeah. Let you skip that stuff. You could also skip the entrances, the openings. You can even skip the infograms video that comes up at the beginning, skip all that stuff. So they made it quick to get through. I think if you're going to play like a tournament game with your buddies, something like that, this would be a lot of fun to go through the tournament. I would assume as they get to the tournament, the commentary is going to get a little more interesting, because they're not going to be saying like, oh, the teams are evenly matched because they have no record. They're going to be like, hey, this team stinks. It's weird. It's neat.
Maybe.
One thing with these soccer games, it's cool to play all these weird. You find all these weird teams that you never heard of, like weird cities and stuff. That was kind of cool, And like I said, the stadiums, all the stadiums I tried were diverse and interesting. And like you said, the crowd is sort of the star. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times they'd be like, "Oh," when I screwed something up. They knew. It's like, well, it's like they're all educated soccer fans, unlike me, Brent. But there you go. The games of Dean Bent. Brent, I want to salute and show thanks to Dean for not only suggesting this, but for being a good sport and sending us over some Dean facts, a little bit behind this scene. When I get to talk to Dean, I'll be bringing all this back up, but I'll keep everybody in the loop on what's next in the Dean Bent landscape. And you don't know, Dean's got so many games, we might be putting this piece back on the wheel someday.
When it hits the regular rewind slot, you never know.
Well said.
Speaking of all that, Aaron.
Sound like you hit your retro brain dead sponge.
It's a little wheel time.
Let's fire it up.
We get the old music going.
Yeah.
Have to have the music. Otherwise, you get yelled at.
Yeah. And what I like is when the music just instantly starts and instantly stops with no fade. That makes it better.
How we like it. You got any hopes, Aaron? Any dreams?
Listen, I barely know what's on there, so I'm down for the clown and anything, man. I'm ready to go. Look at that.
Ready?
The games of Dean
Bent of Ron chooses both games. Suggested by Aaron.
Yes, finally, I get to pick both games. I'm very excited about that, Brent. That'll be great for me. It'll be bad times for you, my friend. So that'll be a couple weeks. Now, don't rip up the piece. Now, see, that's dirty pool. I can print another one. Don't worry. We'll be back with ARG in 2 weeks. Brent, we'll be back with R. Sinclair next week. That should be a lot of fun. But we want to talk a bit. You want to get into a little bit of post-Boat Fest discussion at the end of the show.
I do. Just brief. I know a lot of people are sick of Boat Fest. This was by far the best year we've had. The venue was great.
Oh, yeah.
The people were great. There were tons of people. Huge numbers. But I want to offer, Aaron, members of the Retro Rewind,
it's confident.
a chance, and members of the Amigos network overall. Anyone who supports any of the Patreons, if you are interested in a Boat Fest shirt, I'm going to be doing another run. We tried to make these at the venue itself, and it popped a breaker.
Yeah, you shut down half a wall of computers. Well done.
So I had to promptly run to my place of employment and press all the shirts that way. But if you are interested in a Boat Fest shirt, they are $20 plus shipping, and you can email us at theretrorewind@gmail.com or argpresents@mail.com.
Yeah.
And request that. We're going to gather orders for probably 2 to 3 weeks, and then we're going to be ordering the stuff and getting those out to people.
You did a pretty good job on those shirts. I mean, they turned out great. I was surprised. I got one, and it's a beauty. It's that T-shirt gimmick is real nice.
Yeah, it turned out.
These aren't like for example, I'm wearing sort of a. We had this made, not the best. I gotta lie to you, but it's got me and my boy both had matching Warblade shirts I'm wearing. But the shirts you're making are like of a higher quality, to say the least.
I think they turned out well, and it seems like most people enjoyed them.
Yeah. What was your favorite thing aside from wrecking all those computers by turning on power? What was your favorite thing that you did at the Boat Fest?
Oh, as it always is, the auction's always fun.
You were in good form this year. The baloney was strong in you as you knocked the prices straight to the sky. He made me a bunch of cash. Good job. That's one of the few things you did that I enjoyed. It was well done. I enjoyed seeing everybody and, of course, playing some of the more unique. I got to play a Laser Active, for God's sakes. I got to play the Odyssey 1 and get deep into it. We got the 4 ounce of Naboo. Got to fool around with these luggable machines, PDP machines, all sorts of fun stuff we did on the Coco. Light gun on the Coco. Never done that before.
Yep.
Hook 2 Cocos to get a 3D on a Coco. That was a lot of fun. Just a good time. And we'll be thinking about it in the off season, which will extend for at least the next 8 months. Thankfully, we'll be both fest talk. But if you're interested, if you missed it, we have got. Listen, I don't like to put myself over. I'm very humble, but everyone has told me how much they enjoyed the streaming coverage of Boat Fest. And there are, if you missed Boat Fest or you just want to see like an edited, condensed version of what went down that you could go through fairly quickly. I've pretty much gotten everything but the auction posted up on on our channel on Amigos Retro Gaming on YouTube,
And it
and
includes a show of ARG Presents, a show of
both the
Amigos,
shows.
and a show of Sprite Castle.
Sprite Castle is just part of one of the streams, but the auction should be up in a couple days, and then I think that'll be it. There's a little part at the end of the of Boat Fest where things got a little blue. That might be like maybe a Patreon only thing because I'm not able to release that on the actual YouTube. But it was still fun. That was a lot of fun too. But thanks to everybody who came down. Thanks to Frank from Retro Rewind, all the Retro Rewind guys, Jason Warrens, all the Canadians that came down. We appreciate Frank for sponsoring the event. Amiga Addicts, we always thank them as well. We appreciate everybody for chipping in. Thai Fusion. We also want to appreciate them for cooking us a real nice meal. We had a good time.
Absolutely.
That's all we got. You got anything else, Brent?
Nope.
All right. We will see you next week for our Sinclair. Until then, bye.